Hey POA students, this is homework 3.1. Let's just get to it. We talked about magic number puzzles. We're obviously going to practice that a little bit. My PDF that I'm going to be working on is a little bit different from what you see on your homework, and I'll note that as we go along. Let's dig into the first problem. The following table contains the steps for a new magic number puzzle. Complete the table columns for the starting numbers 3, -2.5, and the number that you choose. Alright, so this is where we just have to follow the directions. And so I look at 3, and then it says add 5, and so I do 3 plus 5, and that gives me 8. And then I multiply by 2, so I take my last answer, which was 8, and I multiply it by 2. 8 times 2 is 16. And now I subtract 10, so I'm going to take away 10. 16 minus 10 is 6. Again, I'm using my last answer to get my new answer, and then divide by 2. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. Okay, let's try the next one. So -2. So I'm going to start with -2, then step 2 is add 5. -2 plus 5 is 3. Multiply that by 2, I get 6. 3 times 2 is 6. Then I take 6 and I subtract 10. 6 minus 10 is -4. And -4 I take and divide by 2 for step 5. -4 divided by 2 is -2. And I'm starting to notice this interesting thing as I work along. The numbers that I'm starting with are the numbers that I'm ending with, so that's kind of curious. Let's see if it works for a decimal number. So 0.5, add 5. 0.5 plus 5 is 5.5. And then I multiply that by 2. 5.5 times 2 is 11. And the little mental trick I use for that is 5 times 2 is 10. 0.5 times 2 is 1. 10 plus 1 is 11. Then I subtract 10. 11 minus 10 is 1. And then divide 1 by 2. 1 divided by 2 is 0.5. And so the pattern seems to be holding. The number I start with is the number I end with. So now I get to pick my own number. I'm thinking maybe this only works for numbers that are close to 0. So I'm going to try 1,000. And so I'm going to add 5. So 1,000 plus 5 is 1,005. And then I multiply by 2. 1,005 times 2 is 2,010. Then I subtract 10. 2010 minus 10 is just 2,000. And then divide by 2. 2,000 divided by 2 is 1,000. And so it seems like every time you pick a number to start with, this magic number puzzle just gives the number you started with. So I'm going to say, how is the starting number related to the ending number of this puzzle? They are the same. The puzzle doesn't change it. So there's problem 1, A and B totally done now. So let's look at number 2. Sorry, I'm having trouble zooming in here. There we go. Complete the column for any number. And so this is where we have to try to do it with just a variable. So we have to think about just the variable without a number in order to try to do these puzzles. So write a number. They've got an n, any number n. Okay, so we're going to multiply that by 4. And if you take n and multiply it by 4, that's 4 times n. Or we can write it as 4n. And you can write either one of those things. And then we're going to add -5. So I'm going to take my answer of 4n and add -5. And that's all there is to it. So let's look at the next one. B, write down a number. They've got n again. Multiply by -2. So that's -2 times n. And again, since I'm just dealing with -2 times n, I could just write -2n, just like that. And so I'm going to take that, and I'm going to take away -2n, take away or subtract 6. So that should be -6, just like that. So -2n minus 6, that's what it looks like. All right, write down a number, n. We're going to take n and subtract 6. Then we're going to multiply that by negative 2. And remember, we have to take our whole answer from the previous problem and multiply it by negative 2. So I'm going to write n minus 6, and I'm going to multiply it by negative 2. So now I have a puzzle. Right now, if I just put this multiplication here, it looks like I'm only multiplying by the n, but we have to multiply by the whole thing, n minus 6. And if you recall from class, what we talked about is that it has to be in parentheses. That's how you say multiply n minus 6, the whole thing in parentheses, by negative 2. So that's what that one should look like. I'm going to plug it along here. Write down the number n, multiply by 2. So that's 2n. Subtract the starting number, 2n, and then the starting number was n, so I'm going to take away n. And if you're feeling especially clever, 2n minus n, that's 2 of something, minus 1 of that something should give me just the something. So you could write 2n minus n, or you could just write the answer n. Either one is correct there. That's called combining like terms if you did that second step. All right, write down a number, n, add the starting number, n plus n. And so I'm looking at n plus n. I'm actually going to do two answers to this. We'll do n plus n, and then it says add 3. So that's n plus n, and then I add 3. So it says add the starting number, n plus n. Another way of writing n plus n, that's n plus n, gives me 2 n's. And so, oh, that looks kind of lousy. 2n. And so I could write that as 2n plus 3. And those answers are equivalent. They're the same answer, just one, this one over here, which I'm going to highlight. That's the simplified version of it. That's called combining like terms. When you have two variables that are the same variable, you can add them together and get 2 of them. All right, write down a number, n. Add the starting number, n plus n, and we just talked about how that is 2n. Multiply by 2. So there's two things you can do here. You could do 2 times n plus n, or you could do 2 times 2n, which is 4n. And I just realized that I cut these problems off of the homework, so if you listen to E and F, sorry about that. These problems are actually not on your homework assignment. We edited those ones off. So you got a little bonus footage there. I think it only wasted about a minute and a half of your time, so pardon me there. Hopefully you learned something. You do have to do number 3 here. So it says, this magic number puzzle shows how the steps are applied using a starting value of n, but the steps themselves are missing. So write the missing directions for each step in the puzzle is the first thing. So for any number n, so I think the first step is always pick a number. All right, and then I see that it says n plus 6, and so the thing that has changed, I'm going to highlight here, is the plus 6. And that's kind of a lousy highlighting job. Here we go. We've added 6, so I'm going to say add 6. All right, and then it does something weird. It says 4n plus 24, and so I'm just identifying the changes here. 24 is different, and so is the 4. And so I'm thinking about how do you go from 6 to 24 and n to 4n. And I know to go from n to 4n, that's like multiplying by 4. And then I'm going to check mentally 6 times 4 is 24. So it looks like the whole thing just got multiplied by 4. And I did that just by analyzing what changes and then noticing how those changes are related. And so this is multiply by 4. All right. And then I see that the thing that changed is actually something that is missing. So there isn't that 24 there anymore. So I'm going to say subtract 24. Because if you take 24 away from 24, you get nothing. All right, let's see what B asks us to do. Describe in words how the starting number is related to the ending number for this puzzle. Well, if you just look at the starting and the ending number, I'm going to highlight in orange, n to 4n, it gets multiplied by 4. That's all that happened. N to 4n is just multiplying by 4. with a couple of extra steps in the middle that don't actually help anything. All right, let's look at this square box problem. So remember, square box problems, the number on top is the product and the number on the bottom is the sum of the numbers on the sides. So on the top I do -5 times 8, and that gives me -40, because a negative times a positive is a negative. And on the bottom I get -5 plus 8, which is +3, because 8 is bigger than 5, so we end up with a positive number, and so that is +3. We're done there. All right, let's look at follow the steps of this magic number puzzle for 2 starting numbers of your choice. One of the numbers should be negative. Also write the steps for any number n. So I'm going to go ahead and just choose my numbers. Let's do 5, -10, and n. And they could have been anything. I just followed the directions up there. So 5 add -5. 5 plus -5 is 0. And then if we take 0 and add the original number, we get 5 back. Alright, so let's try again. -10, we add -5, we get -15, because -10 plus 5 is -15. And then we add the original number. So -15 plus -10 is -25. Alright, let's do it for n. So add -5, that's n plus -5. Doesn't really give us enough room for this. And then add the original number. So this is n plus -5 plus n, which, if you think about it, I've got an n here and an n here, so I'm going to combine those, and I'm going to call this 2n plus -5. It says, how is the ending number related to the starting number? I'm just going to describe what I see. Take the starting number I'm looking here right now. Take the starting number, multiply by 2. That's here. Order of operations, multiplication comes before addition. So that says 2n, multiply by 2, then add -5. And so 2n plus -5, that's how you get 2n plus -5. Take the starting number, multiply by 2, then add -5. Alright, so now we've got ourselves a sequence, so we got to look for a pattern. So I'm just going to do some guessing and checking. So 160 to 136, I'm trying to see if there's an addition pattern, so I'm going to start by doing 136 minus 160. And that's -24, so this subtracts 24. I'm just going to double check. 160 minus 24 is 136. Okay, so let's try again and see if that pattern continues. So 136 minus 24 is 112, so it's continuing. That's good news. I'm going to take 112 minus 24 again. And that is 88. So it looks like the pattern is subtracting 24, and it asks for the next 3 terms, so I'm just going to keep taking away 24. So minus 24. And hear an announcement there. Take away 64 minus 24 again. We get 40. And then we take away 24 one more time. We get 16, and there's the next 3 terms. Explain the reason for the pattern you found. I discovered that you subtract 24 to get the next term in the sequence. Now remember, term is the number, is just one number in a sequence of numbers, and sequence is just a pattern of numbers. All right, next problem. Enter the coordinates of the points plotted on this graph. So I'm going to highlight and then so that we can color coordinate here. And you can see which points are where. Okay, so let's go for the orange point first. Looking at that, we always do x coordinates before y coordinates. Its x coordinate is -2, and then its y coordinate is +1. So that's -2 and +1. All right, so there's point 1 down. Let's do the red one. Its x coordinate is over 1, and then up 1, 2, 3. So over 1 means its x coordinate is +1, up 3 is +3. All right. For the purple one, we go over, starting from 0, 1, 2, 3, and then we don't go up or down at all. So it's, since we went over 3 from the origin, or 0, 0, that center point on the graph, which I'll make a dot here, its x coordinate is +3, and since we didn't go up or down, its y coordinate is 0. And then the green one. All right, so we don't go left or right at all from the origin, but we do go down 2. So since we didn't go left or right at all, its x-coordinate has to be 0. And then we went down 2, so its y-coordinate is -2. And then, yeah, and then we're done. Okay, let's look at the last couple of problems here. So we're going for automaticity here. Hopefully try these in your mind. I'm going to pause for just like a second or two after I do each one so you can try to think of it yourself. -12 times -2. Well, it's a negative times a negative, so that's going to be a positive. 12 times 2 is 24. All right, so 9 plus -3. That's really like 9 minus 3. That's +6. 12 minus -2. That's really like 12 plus 2, and so that's 14, because subtracting a negative is just like adding. -7 minus 3. So we're taking away from a negative, so that means it should get more negative. -7 minus 3 is -10. -9 divided by 3. It's a negative divided by a positive, so it's going to be a negative answer. 9 divided by 3 is 3. 2 divided by -2. It's a positive divided by a negative. Those are opposites, so we're going to get a negative answer. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 times -11. It's a positive times a negative, so its answer is going to be negative. 4 times 11 is 44. 5 plus -6. 5 plus -6 is like subtracting 6 from 5, and 5 minus 6 is -1. 27 divided by -9. It's a positive divided by a negative, so the answer is going to be negative. 27 divided by 9 is 3. -5 times -20. It's a negative times a negative, so the answer is going to be positive. 5 times 20 is 100. -6 plus -17. So adding a negative is like subtracting, so we're taking away from a negative, so the answer should be even more negative. -6 minus 17 is -23. All right. Complete each sentence about adding signed numbers. The sum of two positive numbers is positive, because you can't get, if you have two positive numbers and you add them together, you always get a positive number. Sum of two negative numbers is negative, because if you only have negatives, you're only going to get more negative when you add them together. Sum of a positive number and a negative number is positive when the positive number, I'm going to write number like that, looks bigger. For example, 8 looks bigger than negative 5 because 8 is a bigger number than 5. And so if you added them together, it would be 3, a positive number. Sum of a positive number and a negative number is negative when just the opposite is true. The negative number looks bigger. So if you have negative 8 plus 5, negative 8 looks bigger than 5, so it becomes negative 3. All right, that's all we got for you on this homework. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned something. See you tomorrow in class.